don't need to be disciplined and or motivated in order to become successful. Most people online just mimic what everyone else says. For instance, if you're in the entrepreneurial space, you've probably heard people making reels and content saying, you don't need motivation, you need discipline. Well, the truth is, you need neither of those things. And in fact, in this video, I'm going to explain exactly as to why that is the case. And this is coming from someone with absolutely no background in finance, nor do I have any inkling of money in my family. So I've actually had to build a successful business from zero knowledge and zero guidance. And the very one variable that allowed that to happen is exactly what I'll be explaining to you today. You see, the biggest lie told is that you need to be motivated in order to achieve success, or rather, you need to be disciplined in order to achieve success. Neither of those things are accurate. The reason being is because both of them are short-lived, and both of them will never get you to the goal. Yes, having one or the other will get you vastly further than the person that has neither. But if you merely just have those two things, you actually won't ever achieve the end goal of whatever life you're trying to achieve for yourself. Now let me illustrate, because I myself am a visual learner, and I'm assuming some people watching this would enjoy some type of visual representation of what the I'm actually saying. Okay, so here we have at the top motivation. And what motivation really is just pent up energy that is able to be used but burnt fast. Key phrase, burnt fast. So when we look at motivation, and let's just use M as a short abbreviation for it, it's something like this, something that's filled with a lot of potential to do something extraordinary. But the problem is, like I said earlier, it burns quickly. So somebody with a lot of motivation towards a desired goal would look something like this, a lot of energy being built up and being used in a certain direction. The problem is, the longer that they do the activity, the less the motivation actually starts to get. And it starts to get a little bit more sparse. And before you know it, the pent-up energy that they once had is now a diluted thought of a dream that they attempted to achieve. That is the problem with motivation. Now, when we look at discipline, it's a little bit better in achieving certain goals because it can go a lot further than motivation ever could. The problem with discipline, and let's just use D to abbreviate it, the problem with discipline is that it oftentimes starts off something like this. And I put it in a horizontal format because it's very forward thinking. Motivation is just now aggressive and deliberate. When I think of motivation, I think of it like a wrestler. They are able to grab your leg and take you down to the mat and put up a great fight. The problem is, the longer the fight goes on, the more likely they are to actually obtain dominance over their opponent. Now, discipline would be something like a very talented person that does jiu-jitsu. They're able to use someone else's energy and energy around them to manipulate things so they could be in a better position. That's discipline. And the metaphor there is, when you're disciplined, you're able to use external things to your advantage because you're showing up and doing little repetitive things that move you towards your overall advantage, which again is the goal. So I put it in a horizontal way to show you that it's very forward thinking, but there's one key difference between the motivation and the discipline. Discipline oftentimes doesn't have that same robust energy that you noticed in motivation over here. Motivation is very dense, and discipline is a little bit more diluted, but it is over an extended period of time. So while it's not as dense, that color black is not as dense, it's showing up more. So the more it's showing up, the compounded energy towards that direction will end up something just like motivation, which is that dense black that I'm showing over here. Now, the problem with discipline is that it actually always ends up not working out. And the only way to overcome that dilution of the discipline, because life gets in the way, and if discipline doesn't become your very sole existence, again, it's going to fade away. So this is why motivation and or discipline don't work. Discipline is great. It'll get you vastly further, a large majority. But the problem is you don't want to be vastly ahead of the large majority. You want to be in the top of the minority, because that is really where success is found, and that is where long-term legacy is built. So, motivation is great for bursts of energy and sprints in a certain direction. Discipline is great to achieve certain goals, but never extravagant goals, and never goals that will get you in the top 1% of the minority. The only way to actually overcome something greater than motivation and greater than discipline is this one thing called desire. Now let me explain something for a second. When you think of desire, where does your mind go? Something that you want to do, right? Because that's what I think of, and I would assume that's probably what majority of you as well think of. And that's the truth. When you want to do something, you will do vastly better than the person that's disciplined. You'll do vastly better than the person that is motivated. Desire is the key factor in the reasons why Elon Musk, former Steve Jobs, and all these high-level CEOs like Jeff Bezos are where they are today, because they desire to do the work. When you desire to do the work, doing the work isn't hard. Not doing the work is hard. You see, when you have desire, you do the thing out of the willingness and the sheer desire to do it. For instance, if somebody loves playing video games, you don't ever have to tell them to play the video game. They do it because that's what they want to do. And they're not going to do anything outside of that besides play the video game to get the one thing that they want inside of the game. Whether that's being the greatest in the game or achieving some certain achievement inside the game, it doesn't matter. Now, moving to the case of desire. See, desire is so critical because desire will make you do all the things that a disciplined person does with the same ambition that motivation creates. When you couple desire against people that are either motivated and disciplined, the person that's motivated over an extended period of time will stop doing the things and revert back to who they were. But when you look at the person who was disciplined, they'll probably pick up new habits and it'll go a fair distance. But the problem is, people that are disciplined still let life and mishaps get in the way. And that's just inevitable. How many times have you started a diet and you did it and you lost weight and you achieved a goal, maybe not the overall goal, but you achieved a goal, that it translates to pretty much all segments. But when you have desire, you do the thing forever. For instance, a bodybuilder has desire to work out. In fact, not doing the workouts put them in a worse position mentally. They can't even enjoy their lives if they can't work out. That's desire. So if you can find desire in your life, you will achieve your overall goal. So, with that being said, the problem is, how do people actually find desire within their life? Because it's not just something you can automatically choose. A lot of the times you fumble yourself into a desire. All of a sudden you find yourself really desiring bad food, or you find yourself really desiring to binge a TV show. Also, side note, most people are disciplined, but disciplined in the wrong aspects. Like what I just said, disciplined to junk food, disciplined to Netflix or shows, disciplined to video games. They're disciplined, but in the wrong directions. And that discipline is fueled by desire. Back to the overall arc of this. How do you actually cultivate desire inside of your life in order to achieve an overall goal? Well, something that I did in my life was this. I found solitude. Solitude is the most powerful thing that you can leverage inside of your life right now. Reason being is because when you find solitude, your mind has to fixate on who you are and what you want. And when I say solitude, I don't mean scrolling. I don't mean anything that allows you to think of something else. People are great. The problem is, when you allow people around you, their small questions dilute your focus. So, for instance, if you have a girlfriend or if you have friends or whatever it may be, them being around you is detrimental to finding desire in your life. And let me elaborate a little bit further. When you get a question like, what do you want to eat? Or what are we doing? Or anything along those lines, there's nothing wrong with those questions. What's wrong with that occurring in your life is that every time you get that question, it takes your mind from in a beeline to finding desire, and a beeline to finding what you want, to now a slight deviation of answering that question. Every time you slightly deviate off of the beeline to who you want to become and the goal that you want to achieve, you actually slowly find yourself missing the goal. If you ever heard of a pilot, if they are off just by like a fraction of a centimeter, they will end up in an entirely different country over the span of a flight. And you have to think of your desires, your motivations, your goals as that flight. So finding solitude will allow you to fly straight. Even if someone's not doing anything wrong, their presence is the very thing that's wrong, because it causes your mind to just give even a segment of your attention there. And the moment you break that attention, and just, even if it's for half a second, at someone else, that's half a second that deviates the whole path of where you're headed in life. And unfortunately, this sounds extreme, but it's the literal truth. Your life is a book, and every day is a page. The problem is you can't go back and read any of the pages or rewrite any of them. So every single page is hyper critically important, and you can't afford to lose a chapter to nonsense of questions. The other way to find desire in your life, and this is exactly how I found desire in my life. And if you don't know anything about me, I came from no money. I sold flour to get by. I worked a deli delivery job delivering bagels to corporations in the morning so these 9-to-5 workers had breakfast. At nighttime, I would work valet till 2 in the morning. I've worked 3 jobs all at one moment in order just to sustain myself. Over time, I slowly pulled back on those things to allow myself to find more isolation. The more isolation I found, the more clarity I had. Eventually, I was able to just allow myself to be okay being absolutely negative and have no money to do anything. And anytime I wanted to do anything, I would have to ask to borrow the money. But what that did was allow me to have hyper isolation. It allowed me to be at rock bottom, living in a garage at my aunt's house, and finding myself thinking of ways that I could be who I want to be. Another example, I was super fat. I grew up pre-diabetic. I, in my life, got super shredded. And the only way that happened was because I had the desire of a person who I wanted to be. You get where I'm going with this? So in order to cultivate desire, you need isolation. Why? So you can cultivate the visual representation of the person you want to be, and not just physically, mentally, and not just mentally, monetarily. So if you find isolation and you're able to find things that inspire you, you'll slowly start to see the things you don't like about yourself. I didn't like being poor. I didn't like being fat. So what I did was I slowly cultivated the thought of what a ripped me really looked like, and how that ripped me would walk through life with confidence, the ability to talk to anyone whenever I wanted at any given moment. I also wanted to find the financial independence, because my whole life I was a dependent. I wanted the opposite. I wanted independence, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you watching this also want. The moment I was able to be crystal clear on all of those things, I hyper fixated on all of that. Once I found that person, I found desire. To bring this all in, if you want to be successful, stop taking motivation as the driver to be successful. Stop falling for the illusion of discipline. You need to find desire. The way to find desire is to find isolation and get hyper fixated on a person you want to be. If you don't like yourself, the isolation will expose you to you. But the problem is, you're gonna probably bring this with you everywhere. You're still gonna allow people to contact you. You're still going to allow little things to deviate your beeline. Remember, desire is a plane. Every time that a person asks you something, your plane is now slightly off of the goal. I hope that this helps you. I hope that you find desire in your life. And if you like videos like this and you want to be a better person, you would subscribe to this channel to be informed on things that could potentially change the entire trajectory of your life. Thanks for watching.